Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing some research on iron deficiency and ways to combat iron deficiency. Now, while I am not a medical professional at the time, I did just actually get accepted to medical school, which is one of the reasons why I'm making this video, and I'm just really excited to be attending medical school in the next few months. But having said that, these videos that I produce, this one specifically will be analyzed by a medical professional, and you can see details of that in the description. And we'll go ahead and list the name of the professional who reviewed this video and ensured that it has quality content as well as correct and accurate information. So having said that, let's go ahead and move on. And today we'll be using the Consensus app, which is part of ChatGPT. It was developed by this team of experts here. So we have Eric Olson, he's the co-founder and CEO. So yeah, it was developed by this team here. And one thing I really like about this app is that they have advisors in a variety of different fields, but primarily or specifically medical professionals who have reviewed this app to ensure that it is providing accurate information that is based on current research. And so let's go ahead and get going here. But just one more quick thing here is that this is based on 200 million academic papers, which have been basically used to train this app so that this app can draw information from academic journals and actual research papers. All right, so first off, let's see, we'll ask basically, what is the prevalence of iron deficiency in the general public in the United States? So while that's loading, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience with iron deficiency. I actually had iron deficiency a couple times. Once a couple years ago when I had just recently switched from a vegetarian diet, or to a vegetarian diet rather. And yeah, I just had terrible symptoms. I was feeling really tired all the time. I didn't really have much motivation. I was even having some joint pain. I still am an avid runner and I do a lot of exercise. And yeah, it got to a point where I couldn't even run anymore because my knees were hurting so bad. And I was having neck pain. I was also having, and I still have kind of like, it's not Dupuytren's, but, oh man, what is the name of that? Raynaud's, where my hands are always kind of cold. But when you have iron deficiency, that becomes even worse. And so apparently my hands were cold for a long enough period of time that they started to develop these kind of like sores that were really itchy. And it was just a terrible experience, really, having iron deficiency. And, I didn't know what it was until I actually went to my doctor and they said, they ran some tests and they're like, oh, you have low iron. And so anyway, I was glad to figure that out and I started using an iron supplement and eventually my symptoms resolved and I started feeling a lot better. So anyway, let's get into this here. So the prevalence of iron deficiency in the United States has been studied extensively. All right, according to the research, iron deficiency affects a significant portion of the U.S., particularly toddlers aged 1 to 2 years old, adolescent girls, and women of childbearing age. Approximately 9 to 11% of adolescent girls and women of childbearing age are iron deficient, with 2 to 5% have an iron deficiency anemia. The prevalence of iron deficiency in toddlers is about 9% and 3% having iron deficiency anemia. Iron deficiency is less common in older children, teenage boys, young men, and individuals over 50 years old. So this is based on a study from 1997. So we can't necessarily say that this applies to current individuals in the United States, but it does give us a little bit of an overview of how prevalent iron deficiency can be. And assuming that diets haven't changed significantly since the 90s, it probably is somewhat informative about today's general population as well. Okay, the prevalence of anemia in the US population from 2003 to 2012 was estimated at 5.6%, with 1.5% having moderate to severe anemia. Certain high-risk groups such as pregnant women, the elderly, and non-Hispanic blacks were identified. Anemia prevalence increased with age in men, while it showed a bimodal increase in women with peaks in the 40 to 49 and 80 to 85 age groups. Okay? And this one goes into anemia prevalence in older individuals. So individuals 65 years and older in the US were over 20% in terms of prevalence at age 85 and older, with nutrient deficiency accounting for 1/3 of these cases. Anemia of chronic inflammation and chronic renal disease were also common causes, and a substantial proportion of anemia in this age group was of indeterminate cause. So in conclusion, iron deficiency and iron deficiency anemia are relatively common in certain segments of the US population, notably in toddlers, adolescent girls, and women of childbearing age. While the prevalence is lower in other groups, it remains a public health concern that requires attention. Okay, perfect. So, as we see, it is pretty common, especially amongst certain individuals. I also have read somewhere that those who perform exercise are at higher risk of developing deficiency, iron deficiency, because of the stress that exercise imposes upon the body. So let's go ahead and look that up and see what it says here. So let's say, how does exercise impact iron deficiency? Yeah, that sounds good. And then, let's go ahead and see what it says there. Hi everyone, I just want to take a moment to let you know that I include links to my favorite health and health-related products in the description of almost every episode. These include things like supplements, exercise apparel, DNA tests, health and well-being apps, and much more. Please take a look at these products and services. Every purchase made through the links helps support our efforts to bring health and health-related information to viewers like you. Okay, now back to the episode. Oh, that's weird. It's giving me two different options. Okay, well, that's cool. So basically, which one do we like more? I'm seeing some stuff here talking about VO2 max. It's also over here. It's basically the same answer, I would say. It just looks like this one was made faster. Let's go with this one. All right. So exercise can influence iron metabolism and status in various ways. Here's a summary of findings from research on the impact of exercise on iron deficiency. So iron deficiency without anemia can impair aerobic adaptation and physical performance in previously untrained individuals. Iron supplementation for 6 weeks significantly improved iron status and maximal oxygen uptake, or VO2 max, after 4 weeks of concurrent aerobic training, suggesting that correcting iron deficiency can enhance aerobic exercise adaptation. That's good to know. Okay. Iron supplementation improved endurance performance after training in iron-depleted non-anemic women indicating that iron deficiency can impair adaptation to aerobic exercise and that iron supplementation can mitigate this effect. Okay, similar. So this is basically discussing the impact of iron deficiency on performance, but I was more curious about what the prevalence of iron deficiency is amongst individuals who perform exercise and how exercise impacts iron levels. So let's try that again. I don't think didn't quite understand what I was asking there. So let's say, what is the prevalence of iron deficiency among those who exercise, let's say, extensively? Now, like I said, I've done some research on my own on this, and I've found that exercise does impact iron levels. And like I said, it's because of certain metabolic changes as well as mechanical stress that's placed on basically the red blood cells in our bloodstream. So, for instance, with running, as you run, your feet impact the ground, and those impacts actually lead to stress and mechanical wear and tear essentially on red blood cells, and this can cause hemolysis. So hemolysis, so that's basically breaking down of red blood cells, and then this can lead to release of iron, which can cause basically the iron to become degraded and no longer usable by the body. So let's see what it says here. The prevalence of iron deficiency among individuals who engage in extensive exercise, particularly athletes, appears to be significant. Several studies have highlighted this issue. Iron deficiency anemia is more likely in athletic populations, especially younger female athletes, compared to healthy sedentary individuals. Iron deficiency can impair athletic performance, immune function, and lead to other physiological dysfunctions. Increased rates of red cell iron and whole body iron turnover have been observed, suggesting that dietary choices alone may not account for the negative iron balance in athletes. A study on male adolescents undergoing strenuous physical training found an 18% prevalence of mild anemia at recruitment and iron store depletion in 18% of subjects. This high prevalence is likely due to sports anemia from intense physical training. A retrospective analysis of elite runners and triathletes aged 21 to 36 years found a high incidence of at least one episode of iron deficiency, 43%. Wow. Wow, that's pretty significant, right? So I'm sure this is analyzing over multiple years, but it's looking at these individuals and they're probably saying, like, over the past 5 or 10 years or something, how often or how many incidents of iron deficiency have been recorded, and it's saying 43%. So that's definitely something to watch out for if you're a runner or a triathlete in this case, or if you just engage in intensive or extensive exercise in general. So at least one episode of iron deficiency, 43%, with a significant number of male triathletes and runners having a higher incidence of iron deficient anemia than their female counterparts. This study suggests that iron deficiency and iron deficient anemia are significant concerns for the health and performance of elite runners and triathletes, affecting both males and females. So that's a little surprising to me, this part. So I don't think that's common, actually. I think it's more likely that females will have iron deficiency because, menstrual cycles where they lose more blood than men, right? So then that's one part of it. There are other physiological differences as well, but that's a little bit of a surprising finding. I think generally women are more at risk for iron deficiency. Okay, and conclusion, these findings underscore the importance of monitoring iron status in athletes and individuals who engage in extensive exercise, as iron deficiency can significantly impact physical performance and overall health. All right, so now we know. Exercise puts you at a higher risk of iron deficiency, if you're not essentially replenishing your iron sufficiently with nutrition, right? Okay, so let's see. We can ask, what are the symptoms of iron deficiency? Get a quick drink here while it's loading. Okay. So iron deficiency can manifest through various symptoms impacting multiple bodily functions beyond just the well-known consequence of anemia. Here are some notable findings from the research. Iron deficiency can lead to symptoms like fatigue, hair loss, and restless leg syndrome, even before anemia develops. The most efficient testing for diagnosing, the most efficient test for diagnosing iron deficiency is the serum ferritin level. Treatment options include oral iron supplementation or intravenous iron for those who cannot tolerate oral iron or in whom it is ineffective. Yeah, so I definitely experienced this as well when I had my iron deficiency. I even had, so I was losing hair, like I was taking showers, right? And like I would see hair building up in the drain. Ugh. And I mean, I didn't have long hair at the time either. It was the same length as it is now. And yeah, I was just like, what is going on? Why am I losing so much hair? My hair is also starting to turn gray when I had iron deficiency. It was really crazy. I'm in my 20s, and for my hair to start turning gray was really like, okay, something's wrong, right? So I did a little bit more research about it, and I also saw that iron deficiency for an extended period can cause your hair to start losing its color. So all right, let's keep going. Beyond the reduction of hemoglobin or red blood cells, iron deficiency can result in nonspecific symptoms such as fatigue, breathlessness, and dizziness due to reduced oxygen carrying capacity and disturbance in cell function caused by anoxia. That's an interesting word. I wonder what that means. Anoxia. Anoxia, an absence or deficiency of oxygen reaching the tissues. Severe hypoxia. Wow. All right. So this seems like a pretty severe level of iron deficiency. But anyway, chronic anemia can lead to physiological compensations in the circulatory system, such as increased cardiac output, which might manifest as palpitations, shortness of breath during exercise, anginal pain, and symptoms related to deficient cerebral oxygenation like lack of concentration and faintness. So I think that's a pretty significant or severe case of iron deficiency. Iron deficiency without anemia can still result in significant symptoms, including fatigue, poor quality of life, pagophagia, compulsive eating of non-food items. I've heard about that before. People will eat like ice or even rocks and stuff because you just have such a craving. Something about having the iron deficiency leads to significant cravings in terms of food, non-food items, or it can. And restless leg syndrome. These symptoms highlight the broad impact of iron deficiency on health and well-being, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and treating this condition even in the absence of anemia. All right, so that just says the same thing. All right, so we know some things that can cause anemia. Let's look up another thing, which is what is the difference between heme iron and iron from plant sources. So just a quick overview. Heme iron comes from meat, so animal protein or animal meat, whereas like elemental iron or just iron that's not attached to heme molecules comes from plants, though you can probably also get non-heme iron in meat, but in general heme iron comes from meat, and it is typically absorbed better just because it doesn't bind to other compounds which might be present in the food you eat. So let's go ahead and look at the official answer here. Heme and non-heme iron are the two main forms of dietary iron, differing in their source, absorption rates, and factors influencing their bioavailability. Heme iron source, it's found in animal-based foods, particularly in red meats, fish, and poultry. It is a component of hemoglobin and myoglobin in blood and muscles, respectively. Absorption, generally absorbed more efficiently than non-heme iron with an estimated absorption rate of 15 to 35%. Its absorption is less influenced by other dietary factors. That's what I was saying before, that the heme group in the heme iron basically keeps it more stable so that it doesn't interact with other foods that you eat. Bioavailability, heme iron's higher bioavailability is attributed to its organic nature, allowing it to be readily absorbed by the intestines without needing to change its oxidation state. I didn't know that. Non-heme iron, predominantly found in plant-based foods like fruits, vegetables, grains, and nuts, as well as in animal products, but to a lesser extent. It's absorbed at a lower rate of 2 to 20% compared to heme iron, which heme iron has an absorption rate of 15 to 35%, as it says there. Its absorption is significantly influenced by various dietary components. So influencing factors, non-heme iron absorption can be enhanced by vitamin C and certain organic acids, while it is inhibited by phytates, polyphenols, and calcium found in some plant-based foods. So these compounds are also, I believe, found in like tea and coffee. And so that's why actually people who drink a lot of coffee and tea, me, can also have a higher risk of iron deficiency because it's essentially blocking the absorption of non-heme iron. So if you combine that with a vegetarian diet like I was on when I had iron deficiency, then your iron absorption rate would be significantly impacted, especially with consumption of coffee and other caffeinated beverages like tea. All right, so research on the bioavailability of heme iron from plant sources such as soy root nodules using in vitro models indicates that heme iron from plant sources may also be highly bioavailable and could serve as a novel food fortificant to provide bioavailable iron. This suggests the potential for certain plant-based heme iron sources to contribute to iron nutrition, although the most common and efficient sources of heme iron are still from animal products. In summary, while heme iron, particularly from animal sources, is more efficiently absorbed, non-heme iron, which constitutes the majority of iron in plant-based diets, requires careful dietary planning to enhance its absorption and utilization. Right. Interesting stuff. Okay, so assuming you have iron deficiency, how long would it take for you to recover your iron stores? So let's look it up. How long to recover from iron deficiency anemia, or let's just say iron deficiency. Yeah. So for me, I think it took probably a few weeks before I really started to feel better. And, at first I didn't think it was really working. I was taking an iron supplement, which I will link actually in our description, the one that, the iron supplement that worked best for me. And yeah, it took a few weeks, but I did notice that over that time, my symptoms, especially the hand problems I was having, started to resolve within a week or two. And then my joint problems and kind of overall mood and energy levels slowly increased over that few week period. And, I went back in for iron blood work, or basically the blood test to check my iron levels after a few months, and it showed a steady but slow increase. So I'm going to expect it to say here that it takes, at least a month to maybe a couple or a few months. So recovering from iron deficiency varies significantly depending on several factors, including severity of the deficiency, the underlying cause, individual health status, dietary intake, and whether iron supplementation is used. For adult patients with celiac disease, recovering from iron deficiency anemia using a gluten-free diet alone without iron supplementation, showed that anemia was resolved between 6 to 12 months as a consequence of the normalization of histological alterations in the intestinal mucosa. Okay, that's interesting for people with celiac disease. A study on whole blood donors suggested that the current 56-day donation interval might be too short for many donors to recover from changes in iron homeostasis. That's funny. Okay, iron homeostasis. Extending the donation interval to 180 days was proposed to allow donors to recover from disturbances in iron homeostasis. So that's interesting for blood donors. It might be better to wait for a longer period of time before allowing them to donate more blood so that they can essentially recover their iron levels. Iron supplementation was found to shorten hemoglobin recovery time in frequent blood donors, indicating that supplementation could help in faster recovery from iron deficiency after blood donations. So it's not exactly giving us a time frame except for individuals who have celiac disease. But like I said, my experience was that it took about, I would say, 3 months of routine and consistent iron supplementation to increase my levels back to normal. Having said that, my iron levels went from below normal, right, to just at the very cutoff or lower levels of normal. So it wasn't a huge change. It was significant, but it wasn't a huge increase in my iron levels over that 3-month period. So, it definitely could take longer than that for some individuals to recover their iron levels, especially if they're doing exercise. So let's go ahead and just wrap this up. So we've learned that iron levels can be affected by multiple factors, right? So if you're doing exercise, if you are drinking or eating certain products such as caffeine, like caffeinated beverages like coffee or tea, this can block the absorption of iron to some extent, especially non-heme iron. We also learned that heme iron, which is from meats, is absorbed more readily than non-heme iron, which typically comes from plants. And let's see, we also learned that the overall effects of iron deficiency can be pretty broad. It can make you tired, it can make you even irritable, it can cause, for me anyway, it caused joint problems. So, having a lack of iron can cause a lot of downstream effects. And I think what's really important from this whole discussion and this whole video is that I highly, highly, highly recommend going in for routine blood work. Going in, talking to your doctor routinely, like maybe every 6 months or so, especially if you are on a vegetarian diet, And especially if you're exercising continuously, or especially if you're exercising extensively or at a high intensity level over a long period of time. And it's just generally a good idea to go in for checkups with your doctor. But if you are feeling, a little bit off, if you're having any kind of problems with mood or energy levels, it's pretty advisable, in my opinion, to go in and talk with a doctor or other medical professional, and just to get checked out and make sure there's nothing, significantly wrong, and make sure there's nothing that can't be solved as easily as the cyanide deficiency that I was experiencing. So, in summary, go get checked out. And if you want to see my recommended iron supplementation, or supplements rather, you can check out the description in this video. And again, if you want to see essentially the person who verified this video, you can check that out in the description as well. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, y'all, stay healthy.